Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dark Pixel Podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Kason.
And I forgot to add your face to
Where
this
am I?
stream.
Where am I?
So now I got to do that. While we do that, welcome everyone back to our podcast. We're going to be talking a little about this image you're seeing next to me here, which is it's a couple weeks ago we talked about Nobuo Uematsu working on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that was coming from this magazine. Basically, there was a page there that had been translated. And the second half of that article, one second, everybody. There he is. We got him. Kason is in. Now I gotta make him smaller so he fits in the window. Whoops, I don't want to stretch you out, though. There we go. Anyways, yeah. So some people were skeptical of it because it's like, well, hold up. We don't have the entire article there to translate and read from. So it was basically saying the part that we saw said Kitase had asked him and was like, oh, I was afraid he was not going to want anything to do with it or whatever, showing some concern or some nervousness about asking him, and had said it kind of in like a joking way, which alluded to the fact that obviously Uematsu was fine with it. But people were like, until I see for myself the other part of that article confirming, I don't want to, jump on this bandwagon. But now we have it. So I'm going to go back over there to take a look. This is the second part, the other page, I guess, of what was translated there. And it more or less confirms that Uematsu was very excited. His eyes lit up. They sparked. He was really glad to be asked, and that he was very enthusiastic about the idea, and that he then wanted to be a part of this tour that they're doing now, where they're playing Final Fantasy VII music and everything like that. This music tour that they're doing in Japan. So I just wanted to bring that up real quick because some people, had been commenting on the other video. One second, I'm going to pull the chat out here so I can see it. But yeah, some people were bringing that up as like a counterpoint or devil's advocate about kind of how we were saying we were almost certain he was for sure working on everything. But no, the truth is that it seems to be very clear that he was very, very excited to be asked. And that he is working on it in whatever capacity he's working on it. That can be debated.
That's something that we kind of have questions about, is exactly what Uematsu is going to be doing. It could just be that he's writing a couple tracks and that's it. Or it could be that he's doing every song in the game. But we don't know to what extent. We do know that for a little while there, it wasn't...
Hold up, Kason. Can you hear me? Kason, I'm losing you. Oh, crap.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Why?
Okay, hold on.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You really, really dipped there. I think you're back now, though.
Okay.
Say that one more time.
So this is where I was going with this. So Uematsu, at some point, some journalist had asked him, "Are you working on the 7 remake?" And he said that he didn't have any interest in rearranging his own music again, like for the third time, because he did Advent Children and all that. But apparently that was before Kitase had asked him, and because he was a little reluctant to do that in the first place, I feel like he's not going to be doing all the music here. Like I would say that he probably doesn't want to rearrange his own stuff like for an entire game, but he is working on it in some capacity. So he's doing it, probably at least doing like some of the bigger tracks.
Yeah. So whether or not that's going to end up being, a select number of things or not, we don't know. We just know that he is working on it, which is
awesome. Is working on it. Yeah. And that's really cool.
And we do know also that a lot of FF7 leitmotifs are making their way into Terra Battle music. I've seen at least like 5, 6, 7 examples of that. So I don't know. It's this was just a short topic, something to bring up because we already basically talked about it a couple weeks ago. But there
just
is
letting everyone know that we were right. And
there's further evidence. There's further evidence.
If you guys are interested in hearing more about the Final Fantasy VII Remake and where it's at and what we know so far, the YouTube channel Final Fantasy Union has a really good video. I just watched it a few days ago, and it's kind of recapping the remake development, or at least the progress up to this point, up until like a week or two ago. It does a really good job, though.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to Final Fantasy Union. Those dudes are great.
Yes.
Listen to their podcast. Love their stuff. And I'm sure a lot of you guys listen to them already. But yeah, they have a video that sort of talks about the Final Fantasy VII remakes, like all the stuff we know about it. And they have some really interesting stuff they go over there. But
they do really good research. They're well researched.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat right now. Thanks for watching.
Hello.
You guys are beasts.
Hi all.
Welcome.
Remember that from the chat rooms back in like the 90s? People would come in and just say hi all.
Hi all.
Hi all. ASL. Do you guys remember what that means? Don't ever answer it.
Moving on to the second thing we want to talk about. This is also something that we talked about a bit on a previous podcast. We just want to elaborate more on. We were talking about how there was some person within Sony who was talking about the PlayStation 4 coming to the end of its life cycle.
Yeah, entering the final phase.
Final phase of its life cycle. A lot of people were thinking, oh, shoot, are they going to be announcing the PS5 soon? We did know that they're not announcing any new hardware this year at E3 because they've stated as much. They said there will be no new PlayStation hardware at E3. But a lot of people were thinking, oh, is it going to be 2019? Something like that. We have this article now talking about the PS5 still being 3 years off. This is coming from John Codera, who is Sony's head of PlayStation right now. The quote is, we will use the next 3 years to prepare the next step, to crouch down so that we can jump higher in the future. So they're going to be ramping up to the release of the PS5 during the course of the next 3 years. So it's looking more like the release of the PS5 will be sometime in 2021 or something like that, is looking more likely than, say, 2019.
And you know who that's good news for?
Us.
Nintendo. Well, us, yes. And for people who bought a PS4 for Final Fantasy VII Remake, the odds that it'll actually be on the PS4, not the PS5,
are higher.
just went up a little bit. So that's, at least it's not a Final Fantasy versus 13 where it's like not even on the same console anymore. But that's good news for Nintendo, because delaying the next generation of consoles means that their graphical disparity with other companies will remain kind of what it is. It won't be that big until, at least 2021.
So, yeah. If you bought a PlayStation 4 for Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's probably a lot of people who did. I know I bought a PS3 for Final Fantasy Versus 13.
Yeah, a lot of people did, man.
But anyways, if you did, you're probably still going to see it on the PlayStation 4. They might do a dual release where they have a PS5 version or something, if it ends up taking another 3 years for the game to come out. I'm starting to think that probably won't be the case, but
we'll see. I could see that happening, but we'll see.
Anyways, yes, PS5 will be around or PS5 won't be around until about another 3 years from now. So wanted to follow up on that before we jump into our questions for today. The first one comes from Captain Awesome, who says, what are your thoughts on shelf collecting and whether it affects the price of video games long term, and whether that's something to even worry about in the first place? Shelf collecting, he's referring to you're buying games for a collection. You're not necessarily buying because you're going to play every single game, but more or less you got this huge shelf and it's impressive and you have like the entire Wii library on there or something like that, or the entire PS3 library, whatever it is. Or you have like every JRPG or, whatever form of collecting.
And typically for shelf collecting, it's unopened. Like it's the original preserved, pristine, never before been used, like perfect quality. And that means that if you actually wanted to play that game, you had to buy 2 copies.
Yep. So
one to put on the shelf and one to play and mess around with. And so in that sense, it's possible that it could affect the price. One of the most interesting stats that I read a year ago was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sold more copies of the game for the Switch than
There were Switches.
Yeah. By like thousands, right? And it made no sense at first, but it's like, you know what? A lot of people buy these Zelda games, and especially all the collector's editions and stuff, just to have. And a lot of people may not even have a Switch yet because it's hard to get one, but they still bought the game. You know, I could totally see it affecting price when it's to that point, because that means people are buying your game that aren't even in the market to play it, you know?
Yeah. Well,
but probably not that much.
Yeah, I do wonder, because, like, how many people, I mean, what percentage of people would it be that are gamers that are that level of collector? You know what I mean? That are like, I'm going to buy 2 copies of every game, one to play, one to shelf.
Yeah, not that many.
It's probably low, but at the same time, I think that it does affect the price for sure of games that are not going to, like, that are a little bit limited in their initial, like, print or whatever.
Well, wait. Hold that thought. Somebody just said Pokemon for Switch within 40 minutes. Is the Nintendo Direct about to happen?
Pokemon's for Switch within 40 minutes?
I've heard that Pokemon's, there's going to be something in a couple days. Okay,
I don't know.
Sorry.
Maybe we should
let us know if a Direct is happening. Like,
if a Direct comes on during our podcast, we should do a live reaction.
Yeah, we could live react to it. But unless unless you're talking about something else, I know a Direct is coming, but I didn't know it was that close. If that's what you're saying. Okay, back to shelf collecting.
So I think it does collect or does have an effect on price when the game has like a limited print, its first print or whatever. When they're like, let's say for something like so Fire Emblem Fates. Not that I love Fire Emblem Fates, but Fire Emblem Fates has 3 different games. So there's the Birthright, the Conquest, and then I forget the other one. It's you take this family's path, or you're neutral. So 3 different ones. But they had one version of the game that had all 3 in one cart, like one single game. So you'd have to buy 3 separate games, right? And that had a very limited release. And this isn't so much a collector's issue, but a lot of squatters, they just go out and like buy a whole bunch of them so that they can buy up the stock, and then they can sell it at a higher price.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess essentially the same thing could be said for people who are just shelf collecting. If they're buying a version of the game to play and then buying another version of it, it does, if there's enough people doing it, it would increase the demand because there'd be less of them available. But I really do wonder, for any kind of AAA release or any sort of like large scale release, like how much of an effect that would have. But it certainly could. I mean, because if you are a collector, you're not just into what's popular. You're into collecting niche titles, smaller titles. That's kind of the point of collecting, is to have like something impressive that not everybody has. So I guess for some of the smaller titles, I could see it being an issue where it could inflate prices to some degree.
Yeah, and then you always have you that's become such a problem lately. People just buying something and selling it for like way more because there's not, like, the NES Classics, probably the best example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy how much more expensive that made it.
Yeah, and a lot of that had to do with people just buying to squat and then sell it at a higher price themselves.
Yeah.
But sure, I'm sure there are a lot of people who wanted to buy that thing to leave it in the box.
Yes.
And never open it. And
well, because especially if they
somewhere.
thought, like, apparently Nintendo printed 200,000 of these things, made, and they weren't ever going to do it again, right? Like that incentivizes people to like collect and squat and buy up as much as they can, because as far as what Nintendo said, there's not going to be another run of these ever again. Now, they ended up doing it again later because it was so popular. But when a company makes it known, this is it, then people who may have been iffy on the fence are going to be like, oh, I've got to go get that now. And then the opportunity cost for keeping it on that shelf becomes whatever people are selling it at on Amazon. and it could be enough to where people are like, well, I'm going to cash in.
Yeah. I know that for a while, maybe for like 6 or 8 months back in, I want to say like 2009 or something, I decided I was going to get into collecting.
I remember.
And
I
I,
remember.
I tried to buy every big new release that came out. I tried to go to the local like retro gaming store and buy old PlayStation classics and old Super Nintendo classics, and I was just kind of starting to build a collection.
It's expensive.
It's very expensive and it didn't last long because a
Yeah.
lot of those games I didn't play. I bought them and I sat them on a shelf, and I don't know. I don't know how many
Yeah.
people there are, even me, who's way big into gaming, especially retro gaming. Even I, who have a real passion for it, just could not justify the freaking cost and the fact that it wasn't being used, the fact that it was just sitting
Yeah, that's
around.
true. And you got to have a place to
And
put all that stuff. I mean,
yeah, and then you have to, when I move, I have to take it with me in freaking
yeah.
boxes of stuff. Which is why I love the idea, and a lot of people will jump on me for this, but why I love the idea of buying digital, just to save space in my house. A lot of people, they don't like that for very legitimate reasons. A lot of times you don't actually own it in the terms of the agreement when you're buying it. It's like, if this disappears from your Steam library, like, you can't sue us because you don't actually own it
Right.
technically.
We own it. You're just paying
Yeah.
us to have it for a little
So
while.
I'm with you on that, but
Yeah.
honestly, like, if that's ever an issue in the future, I'm probably not going to care that much about playing some freaking game I bought on a Steam sale for $5. Saving the space on my shelf and in my house is more important to me, and not having to freaking pack 15,000 boxes full of freaking games and
Yeah.
lug them around on a move is more convenient for me. So I got away from collecting really quick, and so I really do wonder.
Yeah.
Of course, it's anecdotal. I'm not saying that my experience is going to be the same as anyone else's experience, but I really do wonder what percentage of people are that level of like hardcore collector to where it's going to have any effect on the price of games, unless, like I said, they are very like limited print or limited release
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Or like you mentioned, retro games. If it is an old game, the only people that still have it, in some cases, like if you try to buy, oh gosh, there are certain games that are like you can't find them for under like $500. They're old Super NES games from a long time ago. But games like Secret of Mana or the original SNES cart for, I can't remember the game right now. There's a game that I think we have possibly like an not legitimate version of it.
Oh,
That's a ROM on a cart. It looks like the cart, but what's in there is actually a ROM. It's not the original game, because
right.
the original game's like $500, right?
Mm.
Anyways, I can't think of what it's called, but that definitely happens, and that's not the fault of the creators. It just so happens, or the collectors. It just so happens they're the only ones that still have it. Everyone else threw it away, or nobody bought it, or whatever actually happened with that, right? So ET, it's not ET, I promise.
Not
you.
ET.
But that's not the fault of the creators. So I wouldn't say creators created that price leap. It just so happens that there's not very many, and if it becomes something that's in demand, they're not going to print more of them just because it got a cult following 30 years later. So you've got to shell out if you want that game, because the only people who have it are collectors. But me personally, I don't know anybody who has like that big of a collection. I don't know a single person who has like what I would consider to be a real, game collection.
Yeah.
Like like display shelves and everything's pristine, the new
Just
boxes,
walls of
the
freaking
1986 version of the original Mario Bros. Or whatever. I don't know anyone that has that extent of a game collection.
Yeah.
So probably not that many people.
So anyways, that's our thoughts on that. Thank you for the question, Captain Awesome. Appreciate it. Matthew Alder has our next topic. Are there any unannounced sequels or remakes which you'd particularly love to see at E3 this year? There are rumors of Final Fantasy Tactics 2 and Bloodborne 2, for
Ooh,
example.
whoa, Tactics 2. Wait. Okay, this is interesting because Square Enix is doing a press conference this E3. They haven't done a press conference since 2015, which is where they showed Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? And some
Yeah.
15 stuff, I guess, probably. But that's interesting, right? So they've got stuff to show, and it's stuff that we probably don't know about. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, Octopath will be there. Remake might have a trailer or something. But, Final Fantasy Tactics 2, as long as it's not a sequel to the advanced version.
Here's why I think that rumor is not true.
Ah,
Very recently, there was an interview. In fact, we should have talked about this as one of our topics. I guess
do
we're
it
doing
now.
it now. Recently, Matsuno, the director of
Yeah,
FF Tactics and 12 and Vagrant Story,
really good director, by the way.
he did a little piece talking about Final Fantasy Tactics 2 and how it was in the conceptual stage, showed off some screenshots. Essentially, there had been art done, and they were talking about doing it with hexagonal tiles.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
And like basically, they were showing kind of like a screen of the battle system. It wasn't just like, in the current version of Tactics, where you send one character over and that one character fights one character for that turn, and then
Yeah.
it's over. They had kind of like parties. So they had
Hmm,
like a bunch of characters on the screen and a bunch of enemy characters, and they were doing some different stuff with it.
that's cool.
And the art style was it was the Tactics art style, but it was even more like exaggerated in terms of like the length of the arms and stuff like that. Like they went a little heavier in that direction.
Hmm,
Whereas with Vagrant Story and 12, they kind of scaled it back a little bit with the
yeah.
art there. In any case, that was recently talked about, and Matsuno sort of showed what they had been coming up with. And so I think because that happened, some people were probably assuming, ooh, Final Fantasy Tactics 2 is. They're going to talk about Final Fantasy Tactics 2 or release Final Fantasy Tactics 2 at E3. So I don't believe that we will
Yeah.
see anything Final Fantasy Tactics. But, and people have been talking about Bloodborne 2 for a couple of years now, thinking that there'd be an announcement for Bloodborne 2. So I don't know if I believe that one either, because I believe that studio, FromSoft, has basically said that their next game is a totally original thing. Now I'm trying to think back. Didn't they do a teaser last year and everyone thought it was Bloodborne 2? But
Huh.
there was a lot of Japanese in it, so they were thinking maybe it was Tenchu or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing that.
I can't remember if there's anything definitive said about that now. It's been so long I can't remember. But I don't think it's Bloodborne 2. In any case, that's not really the premise of the question. It's what
What
would
do
we
we
like to see?
want? As far as sequels go, that's always tough for me. Final Fantasy Tactics 2 would be killer, but I'm not always a huge fan of sequels.
Me too.
So, yeah, I find
That,
sequels to not quite typically live up to the originals that made them so popular.
Unless it's a series that sets a precedent for that, and they're not
Yeah.
trying to tie in storyline wise or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Say Final Fantasy sequels or Zelda sequels or Mario sequels, or it's like they don't have any obligation to tie into something before.
Yeah.
Usually those are fine, but yeah, I'm kind of with you. I tend to not care about a sequel so much, or just
Yeah.
I can't wait to have another Final Fantasy Tactics. It's like
It's like and this is one of the funny things. So I watch a lot of Korean television, right? And Korean TV is super unique in the fact that there is almost never a season 2 of any show. The whole their whole model for the shows that they promote is the season 2 of any Korean show is just the next Korean drama that comes out. That's your next season. That's where you're gonna find a new. And I think it's actually I don't know many places that can pull that off. Final Fantasy obviously can because each new Final Fantasy is a completely different game with completely different characters. That's kind of the level of what Korean entertainment is like. But it's super interesting that they never do sequels, but that enables them to have fresh content, like fresh, really creative, really new stuff. And you know, your expectations are tempered each new time because you don't have the idea of what kind of came before it. And it's not seen by most people as a cash grab either. It's just the next story they wanted to tell with new characters and a different like setting. But season twos or sequels or things of that matter that weren't planned from the get-go, I typically see them as cash grabs, and I just don't. They never quite have the promise that I think they should. And the only exceptions to that are when they were kind of planned from the beginning, like The Empire Strikes Back, right? Like that was obviously George Lucas already knew he was going to make another Star Wars film, or that he wanted to, whether he could get the budget or not. And it ended up being better than the first, but that's super rare. And I don't know. It's not very common that sequels do it for me. So
yeah,
but tactics too. I mean, sure, bring it on.
Even in series like the Soulsborne games, right?
Yeah.
Like Demon Souls was freaking revolutionary, like blew my mind. But then they didn't make Demon Souls 2. They made Dark Souls. It's in the same line, but it's a different thing. And then they made blew my mind again.
And that's like
totally Bloodborne, the same thing. What I didn't like was Dark Souls 2.
There you go.
So like Dark Souls 3 was pretty darn good, and
the third one is usually pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a trilogy, the middle one's typically the worst one.
Yeah. So it's like I would rather see a company do the same kind of game, evolve a play style further, push it a little more, experiment with it, but do something new. I would much rather see that than see them rely on the name that got popular, like Dark Souls, and like, okay, let's slap 2 on the end of that and make our sequel.
And just do it again. Yeah.
But when we know that if they just do it right with something like Bloodborne, you can carry something and evolve something and a completely new name, and it will do just fine.
And it doesn't disappoint because the core mechanics, like the core thing that made Demon Souls so fun and good, is still there.
Yeah.
You just got to change the characters and the setting and, the things that you fight and the weapons you're using. Everything changes, but the game, the core of the game is still there.
Yeah. Matt Seaman says Dark Souls 2 was good. I'll fight everyone. Dark Souls 2 was good. I beat Dark Souls 2.
Now everyone's naming 2s that were really good, right? I get it. There are sequels that are good. Usually they aren't. I'm just going to throw that out.
Yeah. I'm not saying Dark Souls 2 is bad. I don't think Dark Souls 2 is nearly as good as Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne. So, and I think even Dark Souls 3 is quite a bit better than Dark Souls 2. But, I mean, it's still a good game. I'm not going to say it's a terrible game or it's a bad game. It's still competently made. It's just...
Yeah.
It's just not... by its very nature, again, there are exceptions to the rule. Star Wars is a great one. Yeah. When something comes out that is like so new and unique and it blows you away, and it's just like, holy crap, that is so revolutionary. I cannot believe that that's even possible for this medium. Star Wars was that in 1977. Yeah. The visual effects and just like the style of that movie was like, what? This is now what blockbuster movies are.
Mm-hmm.
When you have something that has that level of impact and then you try to follow it up, you can't have that again. You cannot have that same, like, what? I've never seen a movie like this before. This has never been done before. You can't have that kind of, like, impact again. Yeah. So that automatically makes you fight an uphill battle to impress people or surpass what you did before. And in 98% of cases, it is not how it works out. Sometimes it does.
Sometimes it does.
Usually it does not.
Yeah.
So, Mike Donahue says Neo is best Dark Souls. See, that's what I'm talking about. While that's not made by the same company.
Brand new idea,
yeah. Same core idea. Work with it. Evolve it a bit, but it's under a new name, a new thing. You don't have that memory of Dark Souls in your mind when you play it. Let's say The Empire Strikes Back wasn't a super. It was like most sequels, and it under delivered, right?
Yeah.
People going to see that movie don't have the memory of original Star Wars. Holy crap, that was unbelievable. People were lining up out the doors for months to see that. No one had ever seen visual effects like that. You don't have that in your head when you go see Star Wars 2.
Right.
If it's called something else, I mean, automatically that expectation changes, and it makes it a lot easier.
Brings you back down to earth, so to speak.
Imagine,
which you should be.
Yeah. Imagine if they did come out and say Final Fantasy Tactics 2 is something they're working on. We now have, I don't know, 20 years of remembering how great Final Fantasy Tactics was and the impact that game had to then live up to. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be fighting that battle, right?
Yep.
It's so...
That is a losing war. Like, you will never win that battle.
No, you can't. No. Almost never. 2% of the time, maybe it does. But
I'd say 2% of the time it works and people accept it and it's good. Well, okay, you're right. There are still times where it's even better and more revolutionary. So that's
sometimes it happens. Sometimes it's just not very often. So I tend to, again, kind of circling back to the actual question here, I tend to say I'm not like super interested in sequels. That's not what I look forward to when I think of E3, unless it's in a series like Final Fantasy, Legend of Zelda, Mario, something like that, where it's like, I know this is not going to tie in at all or be attached to what came before it necessarily.
Right.
Some people will debate that it is.
In a lot of ways, that's a good thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like I expect something different. I expect something new. I'm not comparing it or expecting it to be something that carries on what I loved already as much as I am just going into it thinking like this is going to be something new. I can judge it based on itself, based on its own merits. That's kind of more what I look for at E3. So
in case of which sequels, too hard, but Final Fantasy 7 2 would be cool. Like, I can just throw out games, right? I can just throw stuff out there and be like, yeah, this sequel will be cool, this sequel will be cool. But I'm not like really, counting on anything crazy happening. A good sequel to Mass Effect would be nice.
That would
trilogy.
be nice.
The trilogy, not
would
just
be super nice.
One.
I would like that a lot.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do. It's hard to live up to that, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to Price Everett's question here.
Ooh.
If you could visit the world of any game for a few weeks, which would you visit? And he, by the way, is studying abroad right now. That kind of sparked his question. And so the thing is, you're just going to be there for a little while, then you have to come back. It's not like a permanent thing. You're just going there for a little bit. So which game world would you go visit for a little while? This is a hard question for me.
It's really hard. Most game worlds kind of suck.
I know. That's exactly why. Because I think about
random encounters.
I think about going to Red Dead Redemption's. Well, and a lot of them are actually just the real world, right? Like Red Dead Redemption is just freaking like Texas border of Mexico in the 1800s. Yeah. I thought about a lot of games where it's like that's just a freaking real world city or whatever. So I had to think more along the lines of fantasy worlds. And I would... One thing, and I don't know if this is the one I would pick ultimately. It jumped to my mind right away, and that's why I put it in the thumbnail, because of the spectacle of it. If you could go and be on a beach on Halo and just like look up at the sky and see that ring like going up around, like that would just be a really cool experience. I feel the awe and the spectacle of being on that kind of station, and you're just like chilling on a beach somewhere and you're like looking up at the sky and you see a halo. But I don't know if that would be cool for 2 weeks. It would be like, that'd be really sweet for like 1 or 2 days.
Yeah.
Something like that. But it's like that. I think that would wear off eventually. So I don't know if I'd pick it, but that is one that came to my mind. Herpaderp, thank you.
Thank you, Herpaderp.
Super chat. Thank you for the support. We really appreciate you, man. So, I mean, I thought about like The Witcher, but like, dude, that world would suck to live in. Like, it's a really hard place to live. I thought about Xenoblade Chronicles, the first game though, the bodies of the Titans, that would be freaking sweet. Especially if all you're doing is just running around and checking out the locations. It's extremely
Yeah.
beautiful
Oh
from
yeah.
like an art design standpoint, and you're the same kind of thing. You look up in the sky and you see this giant mech, just like his face up there at night, like eyes glowing. Like
That's
that could
cool.
be really cool place to go and see and just sort of like do a tour and look at the different locations.
Hmm.
So that's one that I thought of. Um,
You gotta. I have to have a guarantee that I'll be safe, right? Because the world of Mass Effect would be really,
yeah,
really cool.
yeah,
I just don't want to be there at the time that certain things go down. But I would like to. I would love to just be in. Gosh, about 2 hours into that game, I always forget what it's called. Citadel, the city. Is that what it's called? I
yeah.
can't remember
The
what it's called.
Citadel, the
Yeah,
the station that's
where
like
all
the
those like
center
little
of the.
robots are like
Mhm.
keeping the
Yeah,
city clean and all that stuff.
yeah,
It's definitely got its bad parts, but that's a cool place, man. That's a really really cool looking and feeling, and it's all the future. So
yeah. I've
I
always
would love
had.
that.
I've since I was a little kid, I've always looked up at the stars and just wished I lived like 700 years in the future so that I could freaking like
Yeah.
be in space. So Mass Effect has a really special place in my heart. Just even
Mhm.
everything else it does well aside. That first time you go into the galaxy map and you pull it up and it's like I'm gonna
Yeah.
go here, 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 and it's just the music that plays while you're looking at the galaxy map, just like perfectly
Yeah, it's cool.
encapsulated like my feelings about looking at the stars at night with my dad and stuff. And so I think that's a great pick, actually, to take a ship through one of the mass relays to go to the
Yeah,
Citadel
to
and
go through a
visit.
relay, that would be super cool.
And like the spectacle of like coming into the Citadel and it's like the
Yeah.
arms are open or whatever, and then you go into the
Yeah.
station and it got its centrifugal sort of like thing going on, and or centrifugal. I don't know. I have no idea how to pronounce that
The
word.
rotation, I can't
The
remember what the
centrifugal force, I think
yeah.
is what it's called,
Yeah.
where
The
it
gravity
spins and then it
simulation.
creates gravity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So experiencing that where you're looking up, I guess Halo would be the same thing, right? But and you can like see the city like all around.
Halo
It'd be
would be
freaking
similar to
awesome.
that, yeah.
It would be freaking awesome.
A
Um,
lot of the like old school stuff though, it's like maybe a few days. Like if I'm gonna go live in a world in Zelda, or like you mentioned The Witcher, or games that take place in a time where basically there was no toilet paper kind of stuff. Like I probably would only want to be there for a few days. I probably wouldn't want to be there for weeks, among other reasons. But I also thought about like Harvest Moon or something like that. But that's hard work, man. That's just running a farm. I don't think I'd want to be there.
just go see a farm for
Yeah,
a
I'm just trying to
vacation.
think of safe places where I can go for a few weeks and just
I
not,
tell you what, I
you
do
know.
want to fish in that freaking river though. The
Yeah,
Harvest Moon 64 river. I just
yeah,
want
the
to go to
river
that
up in the
page.
mountains, and
Maybe
then go
go.
to the spa. There's like that spa at the hot
Yep,
springs up at the
the top of
top.
the mountain. That would be cool.
I would chill out there.
Now, I also thought of FF7, but while FF7,
Yeah.
many locations would be freaking bullcrap to go
Oh
to.
yeah. Basically,
I
Midgar would suck.
I would like to go to Costa del Sol and Wu
Mm.
Tai.
Wutai, that's where Yuffie's from, right? So
Yeah,
that would be a cool place. That's
yeah.
like that. It's outdoors. It's nice. That would be
They
cool.
have those like statues up in the mountains. You can go on a hike
Hmm.
up there and look at those. Um, there's a lot of
That would be cool.
locations in FF7, like caverns and stuff like that, that could be cool. They have what's that southern town? Oh shoot, where Cloud is losing his mind. Forget the name of it.
Um,
Little town, little
yeah,
island
the one
down in the
before it
southern part.
gets destroyed.
Brain is not remembering at this moment.
Yeah, I
Anyways,
can't
that'd
remember
be
what
a
that
cool
one's
town to
called.
visit. Temple of the Ancients, like that could be a cool
Oh
place to
yeah,
go look around.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Seven would be cool.
But at the same time,
It would not be cool.
there's a lot of stuff going on in that world that make me say, nah, I don't know about that. Someone brought up Insomnia from Final Fantasy 15. That would be a cool place, I think.
Insomnia
Accordo,
actually would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Accordo, the island, the city that's inspired by Venice, Italy, where like they have the boats, the little gondolas, and they kind of go around.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be a very cool place to visit. I think. I think it's beautiful. Like the concept art of Ocordo. Um, I don't remember the name of the city particularly. I mean, is it called Ocordo? I can't remember. Anyway, the nation is Ocordo, but um, the city itself with like the waterfalls and the boats that are all kind of going in, and like the city's like built on basically like a lake waterfall thing.
That's
Like, that
that's
would be
really cool.
freaking sweet.
You know, some Final Fantasy.
Altisha.
There you go.
Yeah.
Some Final Fantasy game with airships, like Final Fantasy 4 maybe, or 9. Actually 9. For all its weirdness, I would love to go on like an old fashioned like magic airship, like just straight up old, like it looks like a wooden boat kind of thing, you know, but it flies.
But it flies.
That would be super cool.
That would be super sick.
I want to do that.
What is the name of the city that's always dark in Final Fantasy IX, where you go do the tournament? Trino. Yeah, it's always nighttime. It's like always dark. Like that would be a cool city to visit.
Like the Las Vegas place. That would be cool. As long as you'd have to participate in that card tournament though.
I would not
get
do
your butt
that,
kicked.
But I would not do that. I would watch it. I would not participate.
But actually, that would be kind of cool to watch. Like see people, because they have that big arena. It just looks like a coliseum. It looks so cool.
Yeah.
By the way, Pokemon is having a press conference. They're calling it a Pokemon press conference is about to begin in Tokyo, Japan. You'll want to turn your notifications on for this. Follow along today for exciting Pokemon news. Sounds like it's going to be a long event, not just a direct. So, but something is happening, and it's going to start in like 10 minutes. So, I don't know if we wanted to tune in for a few minutes of that, or
if we. Remember, we're almost at the end of this. If it starts by the time that we're still rolling, might as well. Why not?
Might as well for a little bit.
Taco Bales brings up Lindblom, which is also a really impressive city.
Lindblom, and it's tall and beautiful. I would just love to be there.
The verticality of the way the construction of Lindblom as a city, with all the airships, like
highways of airships going in.
That would be sweet.
Oh yeah,
that'd be freaking sweet. So yeah, good picks, everybody. Good question. Bryce Everett, thank you for asking.
Yes,
let's move on to our last question. And if Nintendo brings out some Pokemon news, we'll tune in for a little bit. Squareheart asks, what are the chances of first-party M-rated games being announced at Nintendo's E3 conference? Are we ever going to see follow-up to Eternal Darkness or Mad World? Maybe a new IP? Or do you think there's no chance with Nintendo?
Interesting. Okay. I know Eternal Darkness tried a little bit to have a comeback.
Yeah.
And I don't think it went very well.
Silicon Knights, is that what they're called? What is the studio that made Eternal Darkness? Hold on,
Can't remember.
Eternal Darkness.
Which is a great game, by the way. You guys should all play it.
Yeah, Silicon Knights. Now, I don't know if it was Silicon Knights or if it was... what am I thinking? Some people from Silicon Knights, like maybe the CEO.
Yeah, I think it was just a couple people from the original.
Some people who had been devs on Eternal Darkness. They ran 2 Kickstarter campaigns in an attempt to bring a spiritual successor of Eternal Darkness out, and they looked awful.
Exactly. It's not that people didn't want it. It's that this did not look suitable to be a sequel to Eternal Darkness.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say that there's probably no chance we'll ever see anything Eternal Darkness related ever again.
No.
Mad World, possibly. I don't know how big that was on the Wii. It was a very interesting game. It was like monochromatic, black and white, basically, but all the blood was red, kind of a deal. Kind of a comic booky sort of style. Very, 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 very violent game.
Yeah.
Some people are bringing up Bayonetta 3. I don't believe that's first party. It is exclusive. It's Nintendo exclusive.
It's second or platinum, right?
Yeah, but it's platinum. So I don't think that they're. I don't think that can be considered first party. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone can clarify.
Sequel to Conker's Bad Fur Day. Ooh, I don't think we're ever going to see that.
Yeah, because it's a rare property, right?
Yeah. I would say, though, that of all the systems Nintendo's had since the NES, the Switch is probably the closest to maybe having an M-rated game appear on it of any other system.
Yeah.
but I still don't see Nintendo doing it. But Nintendo has done things like their account has tweeted out some rated M games, and they've included some really intense stuff, like the new Doom,
Doom.
I think,
Yeah,
and
Doom.
yeah, some things that typically they wouldn't even have in their Nintendo Directs or anything, and they've been kind of promoting it and in all of its gory beauty. So it's possible that they might be like, let's inch a little bit this way. I don't know, but
I, I
I don't see it happening.
I do agree because a lot of their advertising and marketing has been targeting
Yeah,
adults,
yeah,
basically.
people in their 20s, 30s.
Um,
Yeah,
so I think that's certainly why we have seen them showcasing
yeah,
Bethesda games that are all M rated.
or yeah,
Yeah. So
Bayonetta.
Bayonetta and things of that nature.
Yeah,
So I don't think they have anything against bringing more M-rated titles to the Switch. Like I think they're totally on board for that. Whether or not Nintendo internally will have a team creating an M-rated game
like first
is a
party.
different story, and I don't
Yeah,
see it because I think their studios are basically locked in on Zelda and Mario pretty much. Like in Pokemon, well, Pokemon's still not. It's first party, but also not right. Like they don't have an Nintendo team working on. That's like the Pokemon company,
that's
right?
true. Yeah, that's
So
essentially like second party.
it's kind of like second party.
Yeah,
Monolith is its own studio. It's owned by
right.
Nintendo. So technically, Xenoblade is a first party Nintendo game. But like Nintendo, like what do they call them? Business division A and B or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
they're big ones.
They don't work on even Metroid, or Donkey Kong anymore. Donkey Kong was rare anyways when it started, but not the original character. I mean Donkey Kong Country games.
Country when it
But
got big. Yeah,
basically, the Nintendo dudes inside the freaking headquarters, they're working on basically Zelda, Mario for the most part. Pikmin,
forever.
they have
Splatoon.
Star Fox once in a while, Splatoon.
Yeah.
So I just don't see them having the bandwidth or the manpower to create some new IP of some M-rated game. I don't see that happening really ever.
I agree. And we're definitely not going to see Mario or Zelda become M-rated. So
Yeah,
it's like
definitely.
it had to be something else, and it would take away from some of their other stuff. So, geez, maybe Splatoon could be M-rated at some point. Not really Splatoon, but like that team or the guys that made Arms or something. Maybe they might work on something else like that. But first party M-rated Nintendo. If it happens, it would be like a mistake. It would be like they accidentally forgot. Kind of like I think there was a game called Lollipop Chainsaw, and it was rated M partly because you could do. There was a free cam mode, right?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be rated teen, but there's a free cam mode, and you could take the camera and look up girls' skirts, and that wasn't something the developers. I don't think they wanted that, but you could
because
do
it's
it,
possible.
and so it was rated M. If Nintendo, and I don't know, maybe they were a little more knowledgeable of what they were doing then than I'm giving them credit for. But I'm just saying, if Nintendo had an M-rated game, it would be like a fluke like that, and they'd probably recall it and or not recall it, but release it, reprint it without that feature or something. Yeah. So I don't see it happening. But so the percentages of it ever possibly happening was like 0% up until last year, and now it's at like 2%. So it's still not going to happen, but it's more likely than it's ever been up until this point.
I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if it did happen, considering that they know that their target audience is mostly adults with the Switch. Like, it wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, Nintendo made it Amber, what? Like, it wouldn't be that. I'd be like, oh, okay, interesting. But I just don't believe it will happen. I just don't believe they will do it.
I don't either.
It wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world.
And like you mentioned with all the IPs, there's too many IPs that they have still not yet. Like that Yoshi game hasn't come out yet. Or like, they could be doing a Star Fox. Or you mentioned a new Donkey Kong game. Like there's so much other stuff that they know will sell millions of units that they don't need to take a risk by making a rated M game and take a team away from doing one of those things. They just don't. Yep. The other teams, other companies will do it for them, like Bayonetta 3 or Doom. Like those companies will make the M-rated games for them. They don't have to do it.
DJ Grand Blue says Monolith Soft's Takahashi and Kojima want an M-rated game. Yeah, again, I think that if it's I I don't know. I consider Monolith a second party developer of Nintendo.
I do too. Oh, absolutely.
So like they're still their own studio. They're owned by Nintendo, but they still are not like necessarily first party Nintendo. But they're making exclusively games for Nintendo platforms. I could see them releasing an M-rated Xenoblade game or something. Or even if it's not Xenoblade, they move on to something else and make a totally
something
new thing.
M-rated, yeah.
I could see them making something M-rated. Yeah. I don't think we'll see internal Nintendo divisions create an M-rated game. That's what's
funny. What's the company that made Mario Strikers? What are they called?
Second party. Castle. Is that them?
Hold on. I can't. Camelot.
Camelot? Yeah, that's the one.
Camelot. So apparently they were making a Mario Strikers, but with volleyball, like a volleyball version of the game. And it was a game that I would totally love to play, by the way. But Nintendo shut down their project. I know this is second party, and Nintendo probably wouldn't do that today. But at the time, about 10, 12 years ago, they shut them down and said, like, the game was too violent, is what Nintendo said. Really? Because, Mario Strikers, you just nailed it.
Mario Strikers is a very violent game.
It's pretty violent.
All I did was go around, like, freaking slamming people into the walls. They get, like, electrified and stuff.
Yeah, they're, like
tackling people. Dude, I freaking love that game. It's one of my favorite games of all time.
But apparently, maybe that one flew under the radar, and it became a hit, and then they wanted to make a volleyball one, and Nintendo was like, no, thank you. But anyways, Nintendo just isn't. They're averse to their IPs being used like that. That's just how it is.
Next Level Games, I think that is correct.
Yeah.
Next Level Games made Strikers. Camelot makes their tennis games, I think.
Oh, tennis! You're right. It was Next Level then. That's probably what I meant.
Yeah. So, thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you so much. It is exactly 7:00, but I don't know where to watch this Pokemon thing. I don't know where.
Let's do a quick Google search. Pokemon
event
announcement. Pokemon. That was 6 hours ago.
They tweeted 27 minutes ago.
What did they say?
That it's coming, but they said like they're saying like follow all day, turn on your notifications. Like it sounds like they'll just be tweeting about it. Maybe you won't be able to actually watch the event.
Okay, hold on. I'm looking at something here.
What?
I'm going to send you this. This can't be real, but I'm just going to put this on the screen. I don't think this is real. Maybe it's real.
Let me see it.
I'm sending it to you.
I got it.
It's a tweet. It's like, whoa, this leaked footage. Here, I'm going to show you what I'm looking at.
That actually looks interesting. What the heck? What? What?
The animation is not good enough.
It's really bad.
All. It's really not good enough. Although
I will
really
say
fake.
that the Pokemon Company does not have very good animators. I wouldn't say. And because they've always done like handheld games, low resolution. You don't need to have good animation for that.
Well, what about like Pokken Tournament?
That's true, but that was made by who makes Tekken?
Was it?
I think they're the ones that made that game.
Anyways, that's fake as fish.
That looks possibly not real. But it's worth and especially the way the person's saying, I can't believe it. Like I think that
look at this leaked footage. Yep. That is not real.
Machoke.
That is not real at all.
That's freaking funny though.
So I don't know. Anybody know if there's some kind of announcement happening or not?
I haven't been reading. Pokemon event will not be streamed, says Hylian Hunter. Okay. Well, I guess our podcast is over then. So.
Sweet Life of Dio Brando says that is faker than 2D waifus. Yep. It is very fake. Anyways, so yeah, it won't be streamed, so we're not going to take a look at it anytime soon. So we're going to end our podcast for today. Thank you for watching.
Yep.
You guys are beasts. Thank you for all your support, and we will see you again soon. Have a great week. Peace out.
Peace.